Warning, this show contains adult language. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms.
All right, what's going on, guys? Today is a episode about gardening hacks. I want to do this one for you guys as a series. This one's going to be a little short, I think, but I want to know what you guys want to listen to. See, it's very difficult for me to know unless I just watch the views and the downloads, but nevertheless, excuse the background noise of my vehicle. This is my work commute, my 7.3 liter F350 diesel pickup truck on my work commute back home. So let's get into it. Gardening hacks. What is the first one? Stagger planting. I learned this one from Masanobu Fukuoka. He's not with us no longer. He passed away, unfortunately, but did a lot of cool work in Japan, and where he would just broadcast seeds out. And one of the things he noticed, the problem with conventional gardening and farming, is that things are put in a row. Well, these bugs they kind of stagger a little bit, but once they find something, they can just start walking like from row to row in a straight line. It makes it very easy for them to find stuff. Fukuoka found by just staggering and throwing stuff out, scattering seeds, stuff was randomly placed that bugs would miss it. And what he did is he would just sit and watch. Like, he had the time. I wish I can do that. He used to just sit and watch what he wrote about and just see the patterns, see how these bugs move, each individual one. So by stagger planting, meaning that if you have a 4 by 8 foot garden and you're going to do 8 kales in a row, what's going to happen is a lot of the insects are going to smell that, they're going to find it, and it makes it very easy for them. Whereas if you, say, took 4 corners and you put the kale on all 4 corners, the cabbage maggot moth is it's probably going to make it a lot harder for them to find. The aphids as well. Just having stuff a couple feet over helps. I've had in my garden experience aphids just really eating, say, like my brassicas, like my cabbage, and then a few feet over, everything's just fine. They're not even touching that one. So sometimes it's genetics, but sometimes it's placement. I've even heard of people, and I haven't done this, where they'll specifically grow stuff like kale on one side of their garden, like a bunch of it, so that hopefully like a decoy where the aphids will go to, and they'll attach themselves there and leave the rest of the garden alone. So yeah, definitely a nice garden hack. And it works with diseases as well, guys, like certain like funguses and stuff. All right, so next one is natural cloning. A lot of you guys probably don't know. You probably hear cloning and you're a naturalist like me, and you hear something like that and you go, no, I'm not into that. I'm not cloning. What? Cloning actually happens naturally. Willow trees that a branch will fall, start leaning over into a stream, it'll actually start to root. If that branch broke off and got lodged on the side of a bank and washed up, it would actually root in and create a whole new tree. See, cloning is not just for scientists and for people to mess up our world, and toy with everything, but it's actually for us as well. That it's very simple and it's natural. I experienced in my aquaponics system once a tomato bush that the branch laid down on top of the styrofoam. It actually started rooting into the styrofoam. It knew that there was water. It didn't even had contact with moisture. It's very interesting, and I done a lot of weird stuff. Continue to do experiments like that. But notice how in the node, the roots were just going right through trying to get to that water. So what happens is you can literally take a tomato bush, lean a branch over, make sure it's got the little nodes and little knobs on it, lean that over, bury that part of the branch under soil, and let the other end stick up out. And what's going to happen is it'll start to root in that soil. As long as it has water, you can clip off that main feeding branch, and now you have yourself another tomato bush. Another thing you guys can do is tomato plants is suckers. It's right when you have the Y, like right in the shoulder of a plant, like an arm, you can imagine going off to your side, and then the head, the trunk going up, that part in between, that's called a sucker. Take all those off, and what you get is a nice streamlined plant. But if you wait till those suckers get to about 6 to 8 inches long, instead of getting them when they're little babies, you can clip these suckers off and literally stick them inside of, like, say, a recycled water bottle that's got the little hole. Fill it up with water and stick the stem in there and watch the roots start to form. Pull it out and stick it in the dirt, and bam, you got yourself a clone. You got yourself another tomato bush with a head start a lot faster than growing from seed. You can actually just, in my experience, after I started toying with this years ago, I just stick them straight in the ground now. I don't even play around. But you can do this, guys, with everything. You can take clippings of rosemary. You can take clippings of, what did I just do on mine? I did thyme and oregano. Just take about a 6-inch stick, cut it off from the head, And then you're going to want to make a little triangular clean cut at the bottom, just right where, again, where the node is, where there's a little bump. And just stick them in the dirt. I just poke my finger or a pen, a big pen into the dirt, slide these guys in, tuck in the soil around it. As long as it's got water, bam, I've got 8 plants going right now for oregano and thyme. You can do this with mint like peppermints, spearmints, strawberries. Strawberries throw off those little runners. You can literally build yourself, the idea I have is a strawberry tower. And what you do is you get a lined basket, doing it the biodegradable container gardening way. If those of you not following beforehand, I actually invented a thing called the biodegradable container gardening. It's wire fence with burlap. And basically one of the ideas I have is to put a little sprinkler on top of a box that's literally built, say about 1 foot, equal dimensions on the sides and about maybe 6 feet tall. Fill that thing up full of dirt. You're going to make little cut holes in the burlap. And as the strawberries start to throw their runners out, it looks like an octopus. It's this little tentacle that comes out, and at the end there's this little bud. If you take that bud and stick it in the dirt, that starts to grow. And then as that one starts to grow, you take the tentacles off that one. I've even cut the tentacles off from from friends of mine, taken them home, planted, just wedged them inside the dirt, and voila, that's where I got all of my strawberries from about 2 years ago. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you guys can do with natural cloning. All right, dealing with powdery mildew. This is when it looks like someone sprinkled like powdered sugar all over your plants, and it happens to a lot of plants, a lot of weak plants, even wild edibles, wild weeds and stuff. I've seen it on cheeseweed and nettle. Not too much. I think they're pretty well adapted, but it still does happen. Well, what it is it looks like a bunch of marshmallows under a microscope, like stacked up like 6 to 7, I can't remember high. It gets like these little marshmallow formations, and then it explodes and pops, and all the little particles go flying in the air to make it short, and it sticks to things. That's how it reproduces. Now, a lot of people are under the notion that it's because of overhead watering. Actually, what I've come to learn, and through so much through experimentation yet, but that by overhead watering or letting your plants sit in the rain, you actually could possibly get a lot less powdery mildew than if you had stuff in a greenhouse where it never gets wet and it's only watered by drip irrigation, so the leaves never get wet. From what I heard, it's nice that the water will actually wash off the spores continually and help to defeat the powdery mildew spread. But I got some natural stuff for you guys over here. This one I got to give credit where it's due to Paul Wheaton of Permies.com. Paul Wheaton had a video where this guy in Oregon, where it's wet all the time and there's, I guess, pretty bad powdery mildew out there. And what this guy discovered is horsetail tea. So what you're going to do is boil yourself a bunch of horsetails. I just kind of get it. I live in California, and there's people who have it in front of their houses. The same thing, we were talking about the clone. I just chopped off a couple pieces off the top, stuck them in dirt. What I do is I will actually chop a triangular piece, an angle cut right at the bottom of the node. It kind of looks like bamboo. I'll do a triangle so I don't flip this thing upside down and screw it up, right? I know if you plant it upside down, it's not going to grow. And by the way, you can do this with grapes as well. And that's the way people do it. A flat cut on the top, so you know that's up. Angular cut on the bottom, you know that's down. Just stick them in the dirt and they start to grow. So basically grew myself a bunch of that tea, and you want to go in about once a week, once every 2 weeks. And I think it's about a cup of tea per gallon of water. And then you just basically foliar spray, meaning you just mist all your plants under and over and everything, and it helps to kill off all of the powdery mildew naturally. Now, a lot of people are into neem oil and stuff like that. Guys, the neem oil actually kills the good insects too, like ladybugs, praying mantises. I'm not quite sure with bees. If you got frogs like I do, it's probably a big concern. I like the horsetail tea. You got to stay on it though. I will give you a clue or a tip here. Just start spraying it even though you don't have it. If you know that you have powdery mildew in your area, just start spraying all your plants on a weekly regimented basis. If you're growing it yourself, it's free, right? And if you can't get it, it's relatively cheap. Buy it by the pound. I think it's like $10 a pound. So yeah, the other thing that I have for you guys is zinc. And zinc sulfate, I think it is. It's the same vitamins that we take orally. It's not going to hurt your plants. I haven't noticed it bothering the frogs or anything like that. But what you're going to want to do as soon as you start seeing large amounts of powdery mildew is spray about 2 heaping teaspoons per gallon of water. Try to dissolve it. I get a paint mixer on a drill and just really whip the crap out of it, and it still kind of doesn't dissolve it, but it spreads it all nice and neat. foliar spray up top to bottom, and I've had success with that. For some reason, a little bit of push, just like us eating vitamins, the plants actually get that zinc and fight off the infection of powdery mildew. All right, podfish waste. That's another one I have over here. At my house, I've got 3 goldfish inside of about an 80-gallon trough, which I grow some food in, directly in my aquaponics system. It's not really an aquaponics system. It's more of just a pond for aesthetics. You know, it cuts out sounds at my tiny house living quarters, and the sound of the water is relaxing. You get to see the fish. It just brings splendor and stuff like that. But you know what it also does is it creates fish scum, fish waste. Now, it doesn't really bother me too much, but after about a year or so, it starts to get pretty thick. When I turn on my water fountain, the whole water actually turns brown. I can't even see the fish anymore. So I think it's kind of safe to say maybe we should clean that out. But a lot of you guys would probably look at filters, and that's pretty cool, but the filter's going to clog up. I'm going to give you guys a really simple way to capture this stuff and actually how to use it as well. It's called the Swirl Filter. What you're going to do is you're going to get yourself a 5-gallon plastic water container, and you're going to cut off the whole entire top, and you're just going to open that up. You can do that with a saw, little small reciprocating saw, or like a saw that's used to cut metal, like a hacksaw. There we go. And you're going to want to drill yourself a hole or run your hose from your pond up and through it, but you want to get this up against the wall because we want to create a swirl, right? You want to get it up going in one direction to where it's swirling the water in a circle like a vortex. And you're going to want to cut another hole. If you could suspend this thing over your garden or over your pond somehow on a frame or something, you can just drill another hole and let it pour out the side. And you want to do these holes way as close to the top as possible. Or you can do it professionally, where I take a PVC pipe and actually glue it in an elbow that facing, say, right, to cause the vortex of the water to spin. And then I just make a fitting to where I take my pond hose that goes in my pump, usually where it pumps up to my fountain, hook that up to that end. When it turns on, it's spiraling. And then I just drill a larger hole on the other side with another hose that will actually allow the water to flow back into the pond. And you're going to want to make this one maybe a little bit lower than the area of the water coming in. That way it gets a little pressurization. But before you go and do all that now, we need to plug the bottom. You can either leave the screw-on lid, some of them have, or you can get yourself a little nozzle. I think it was, I can't remember the exact dimensions. I think it was 1.5 inch rubber fitting. It's the type for ABS pipes. You can see it at Home Depot. It's a rubber elbow, or I'm sorry, a rubber like nipple elbow, where you put over and you squeeze. It has these little pipe clamps, so it squeezes the rubber around the hole of your water container. And then at the bottom, you could put yourself a shut-off on and off valve, and I think that's 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches as well. And it's just a plastic piece that goes on PVC irrigation, where you open it. It's got a ball inside of it with a hole through the center. So when you close it, the ball closes everything off. The hole is when you turn everything on, it opens up. So what happens with this pond filter is that water circulating from your pond, the filter's way down at the bottom. As the water shoots in with all the muck starts sinking to the bottom while all the clear water goes off the top. Within minutes, you can have your pond perfectly clear, and that way you don't got to deal with, emptying out a bag from filtration and stuff like that. So that makes it really, really nice to clean up your pond. But guess what? Why would we take and throw that away? That is high-powered nutrients. We want to take that, and you can use it as a fish emulsion, like a fish poo emulsion. Add a little bit of water to it if you want, or just take it as the mud. See, when you get a bucket underneath and you turn on that valve, it's all going to start, the sludge is going to start draining out till you get to the fresh water. You can close it off, and now you got this muddy sludge. Well, you can get yourself a ladle and just kind of ladle that over your plants. I think as long as you keep it wet and it doesn't dry, that's the ticket. You don't want these things to dry, otherwise the beneficial bacteria and microorganisms and stuff in it are going to die. So I kind of recommend maybe whipping it up with some water, and then getting yourself maybe not a spray wand or a garden water. What do you call those things? The little garden tanks. They got the little nozzle on the end. Take the nozzle off. Make sure you keep mixing this stuff up and just water your whole garden with these things. Spread it, the sludgy water all over it, and then give it a good watering afterwards so that stuff sinks into the soil, and watch how your plants respond. All right, so speaking of all that, I grow kale with my live fish. Again, I told you guys I do some weird experiments. What I found is that the only 2 things that I can grow with the fish, because understand in an aquaponics system, they usually have to put a vat of water separate because the fish will destroy the plants. You get tilapia, goldfish and stuff like that, they'll actually eat the roots of the plants. Lettuce is not going to really make it. They will actually eat it to where the lettuce actually dies. What I have found is that Lasanto kale, at least in my experimentation, does just fine. Now, it doesn't grow super big. It stays kind of miniature, kind of dwarf-like, but that's fine with me. Back when I had a dog, I actually didn't know what was eating my kale and found out it was my dog. So what happens, you can imagine if you have a trough that's about 4 feet in diameter, right? Let's just imagine that. You got a couple goldfish in there. You're going to take yourself, like what I did, is get some gallon milk jugs or something, poke a whole bunch of holes in the bottom of it so the water can freely come in and out. I lined mine with lava rock, filled up each cup with lava rock, and used myself a little quick connect zip tie. And I zip tied these things around the whole entire perimeter, all these little pots, filled them up with gravel. All I did was drop in some Lasanto kale seeds, and the things sprouted all by themselves. So you can actually have literally a whole thing of kale plants growing along the whole entire perimeter of your fish pond, which makes it look pretty neat. It looks pretty. You could also do this with mint. And what happens is the fish eat from the bottom. Now, if you did enough of this, I am thinking that you wouldn't even have to feed your fish, that they can live off something like that. Goldfish actually eat algae and stuff like that. So if you had partial sun in there, you had algae, and you actually had the kale plants growing, Lasanto, of course, and so maybe mixed in with a little bit of mint, peppermint or spearmint, you wouldn't have to feed your fish. They get the food from the bottom. You and obviously your dog get the food from the top. The plants actually help purify the water, and for those of you new to aquaponics, you don't have to worry. You can literally drink the aquaponics water when there's enough plants in it. When there's enough plants. You can't just go and drink scummy pond water, because the plants clean everything up. The nitrates and nitrites and stuff like that, the ammonia, there's an equal balance. They give oxygen for the fish and everything. So yeah, pretty cool deal. I would like to do this a little larger scale, but my tiny living situation right now doesn't really afford me to do so. All right, on to your next one is pepper plants. Pepper plant winterization. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. I haven't done the last one that I'm going to share with you guys, but basically what I did is just took my pepper plants, which meaning my jalapenos, bell peppers, Anaheim peppers, poblano peppers, any kind of peppers that you have. Once the winter time starts coming, you want to nip off all the leaves. Once the leaves start dropping, nip everything off. I've taken mine where I just pretty much just decapitated the plant. Like at the head, the shoulders, just left just the stick sticking up. We're going on our 3rd year now, and I haven't transplanted them either. I left them in their pot, which is a biodegradable container, which is a 8-inch high by 12 feet wide, perfect cubic box that holds about a perfect 5 gallons of soil. And what I've done is just left them in there. They're going on their 3rd year, and I just give them a little bit of some worm castings. And every year, once the springtime comes, and they start sprouting up. They may look a little deformed, like sometimes some weird branches start growing off, but you can kind of train it and prune it. But guys, I've gotten my peppers like a couple months early when everybody else was still waiting for theirs to grow. So you can take these things also, and you can take them out of the container, which I'll probably need to do by next year. And you're gonna chop off all the leaves and everything. Leave yourself maybe a couple Ys and Ts, whatever you got, meaning where the branch splits off. Now you're gonna pull this thing gently out of the pot, and you're gonna rinse it off with a hose. You're gonna expose those roots. And then what you're going to do is, because in the wintertime, these guys are dormant, they're sleeping, you're gonna put them in a very small pot, enough just to accommodate the root ball. Very gently pull them out, and while the plant's sleeping, clean all the dirt off and everything, pot them up in, say, a 1-gallon container, and then comes springtime when they're ready to grow, you're going to take them out of that 1-gallon container and put them back into a 5 or a 10, whatever it is that you want. And that's the way you guys are going to get a head start on any of your peppers. And I believe I've heard stories of guys that have had them for like 8 years. So yeah, little hack there for you guys. Last one I got is transplanting tomatoes. Hopefully this stuff's interesting to you guys. I don't know if you're bored. I feel kind of weird. I'm just sitting here driving, talking. Hopefully you are. Let me know in the description below. There's an email. Let me know if I suck or if I'm actually doing something for you guys. But next one is transplanting tomatoes. I think a lot of people know this, but maybe most people don't. You can actually take your tomato plant, when you take it out of the pot, your seedling, you can clean off all the roots if you so choose to. I don't really bother with it. unless the roots are root bound, like they're all tangled up in a plastic. Then you want to kind of loosen them all up with your fingers, just kind of break it open so that the roots know that they're free. But what you're going to want to do is strip all the leaves off. You want the thing to look like a palm tree, right? Just the last little couple leaves on the top. Lay the entire thing down like in a ditch. Like dig yourself like a 6-inch trench, a 6-inch trench. Lay the whole tomato plant in there. If you've got a tomato plant that's probably about a foot large, and you left just the top, just angle the leaves at the end gently, don't crack them, and let them just kind of stick out the end and bury the whole thing. What happens is they got those nodes again, those little knots, and they got little hairs. What's going to happen is this thing's going to take to root really quickly, and what's going to happen, instead of just planting it normal a few inches in the ground, it's got that much more root system, and it's that much quicker for it to absorb nutrients. Therefore, you get more fruits and faster growing plants. Now, like I said, in aquaponics systems, you can literally take your transplants, and clean everything off. And as the branches start to grow, you can literally take them and dip them into the pot next to you, and then cut it off like an octopus, and you keep getting more and more plants. The other thing you can do, if you don't like laying it down aside, you can just dig a hole really deep and just bury the whole thing up to its. Basically, you can imagine a body, like a human's body. Take the body and bury it all the way up to its neck, and just leave just the head sticking out. Okay, guys, that's the end of the show, and I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here today and taking the time to listen. And if I brought you guys any value of any type, please, and only if I gave you guys some value, like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down. If you gave me a thumbs down, tell me why. I would love to hear your opinion on the subject matter. But it really helps the algorithms and for the show to get out. And if I've given you something in return, please feel free to share this show, comment. All of those things help us to develop and keep this show up and running. If you guys want to get a hold of me, the email is down below. It's upandinitshow@gmail.com. So guys, as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.